we're excited to be here with our first guest on our Real Life Guys podcast and YouTube channel. And we got a very special guest today, Barry.
Yeah, Marty Stone is with us today from Major League Fishing. Welcome, Marty. How are you today?
Man, I'm great. I'm excited. I'm the first-time guest. And you only get a chance to do this once.
Yeah, we've just sitting there talking, in 30 years, when Barry and I just launch out and get syndicated and everything, you'll be a great trivia question. Who was the first guy that was a guest?
I hope you remember who got you there after that first and dragged me along with you.
That's absolutely right. You got my word on it, brother. I'd love to do that for you. We want to take just a moment, Marty, if you would, just sort of introduce yourself, introduce about your family, just share with our folks sort of who is Marty Stone.
Yeah, Marty Stone. I'm a color analyst, Major League Fishing. Been doing this full time for the last 4 years, but I've been a part of Major League Fishing since inception. I'm actually a part owner, a small owner of that, and we've been filming events since 2011. I was a professional fisherman for over 25 years. Live in the state of North Carolina. My wife, Robin, and I just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. Our son, JT, is 24 years old. My daughter is 18, Riley G. She just got through with high school, so she's smart like her mom. She got out of semester early. JT, unfortunately, he's taking a little bit longer to get out of college, so he's more like his dad.
That's awesome. You got an awesome family, Marty. I love spending time with them. Delightful wife and daughter. I don't think I've met your son, at least not for conversation, but really enjoyed getting to know you guys. Tell us a little bit about your earliest memory of fishing.
Yeah, we shared the last episode just some of our early childhood memories of those days of taking a pole and some worms and fishing. But what are some of the things you remember as you got into fishing at an early age?
At 56 years old, I can go way back too far and spend way too much time with you guys on this. But I can remember dragging one up the bank. And because I wasn't big enough to be able to reel a fish in, but some of my fondest memories, my Uncle John on my dad's side, and they lived in the Harnett County, Sanford area. Every summer, I would go spend time with him. Him and his wife weren't able to have children, so I was his kid. In the summertime, we'd spend 2 or 3 weeks, and we'd go to all the ponds throughout Harnett County. And he knew where the best brim ponds were. We'd catch these 1.5 to 2 pound bluegill. And I'll never forget one afternoon, big old bass smoked one of them crickets because he always used crickets. That was the way to catch the bigger fish. And I got to reel that thing, and it was about 2.5 pounds. I was like, wow, this is a little bit different. And then in spending the summer times with him and my grandparents, there was one pond in particular in Harnett County that summer I caught 3 fish over 8 pounds. Wow. That was a life changer for me. That really was. And I'm not going to reveal where it is because they say.
Well, I was getting ready to ask.
Fish.
We're sitting in Harnett County right now. We're trying to think, where is this pond?
Yeah. And when I tell you it was little, you could cast from one side to the next. Probably ruined that pond because they ended up mounting 2 of the 3 fish. But all throughout high school, about age 16, I knew what I wanted to do for a living. I wanted to be a professional angler. Didn't know how, didn't have a clue. Kept on pursuing it, in and out of college, finally finished a degree from App State. And in 91, I started fishing full-time locally and regionally. 97, I was blessed enough to be able to take it on the national trail. Not a great career, but it was one that was very blessed. And I've stayed a part of the fishing industry. Now I'm back into it full-time and have zero regrets. Man, I've got to go places, do things, meet people, see things that a redneck from Eden, North Carolina, probably have way outpunted my coverage in everything I've ever done.
Well, your career was pretty good, though. Multiple double-digit top tens, if I remember right, and made a good living and got to experience something that you had dreamed of as a child. So today, what are some of your favorite places to fish today? Where do you like to go and fish when you're not with the MLF?
Barry, that's a great question. We're getting ready to build a house up at Kerr Lake. But some people know it as Bugs Island up on the North Carolina-Virginia line. I've been going to that lake now. I'm going to age myself, probably 41 years. And the beauty of that lake is it's Corps owned, meaning the shores for the most part aren't that developed. Around the lake, there's 50,000 acres of Army Corps engineer land that will never be developed. So it looks as pristine today as it did when I started going up there. So I really enjoy that. And then some other places that I've been throughout the country that I truly enjoy. I love the state of Texas. When people tell you things are bigger in Texas, they are not lying. Rayburn, Toledo Bend, those places are legit. Lake Fork down on the Mexican border, that's got a fond place in my heart too. A couple stops in Florida that I have enjoyed. Okeechobee's always been a great one to me. And then some of the prettiest country in God's green earth is up around Lake Champlain, New York, Adirondack Mountains, and also St. Lawrence River. So I've been blessed. I have literally in this career fished from coast to coast, border to border, and even got to fish in Japan and Mexico. I've got to see a lot of waters, but those are some of my fondest.
That's awesome. What is your favorite lure? What do you love to catch fish on? And then your go-to?
Whatever they are biting. But now the key to that question is, what are you going to make money on? Because in my job, it was about making money, right? So I always had to go-to lures. I loved any kind of shallow crankbait, anything in that 3 to 5 foot. I always used to say I was deep water challenged. If I fell out of the boat and couldn't stand up and it was over my head, I was in trouble. And that's how my whole career was. When it was a deep water, I got better at it. I never said I was good at it. And then a jig, any type, whether it's a swim jig, whether it's a flipping jig, whether it's a casting jig, whether it's a finesse jig, whether it's a vibrating jig. A jig catches big fish, and at certain times it will catch you a lot of fish. So if I had to go back out on the road today and make a living and do well at it, there would be some type of crankbait involved and some type of jig involved. Those two lures, I'd be fine. And then around our geographical regional area, no, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to catch my share.
Yeah, I think we've come back to, we said this last episode that when all else fails, Barry and Sandy are going to probably wacky rigging. And I've seen some of that on MLF too. Those guys are out there throwing that in a drop shotting, which is slow. You know, it's one of those type fishing that you don't get to, speed up much at all. You're just waiting. And then we've gotten to the whopper plopper, a little top water.
Oh, yeah.
Early morning. And just being able to see the bass blow up on that's exciting. But I think we're working on learning how to fish deeper. It's hard.
Yeah, we're not doing very well. Another question I was going to ask you, we fished a little kayak trail, which I got to get you in a kayak, Marty. You do good in kayak. I got one you can borrow.
I've got 250 reasons why not. And it's called a person. But I can start it with the key.
We got these guys that we fish this kayak trail with, and we got a couple of guys. They're just pulling hogs out of the water in the 20-degree weather. What are some tips for us average Joes to at least sort of catch a fish during this time of year?
Yeah, so people always, when we talk about this time of the year, there's some negative connotations to it because the water's cold, the fish are sluggish, and they're lethargic. They're the biggest fish you catch of the year, okay? So to be the biggest fish you catch of the year, you got to eat a lot. These fish feed. People, they give you, well, the water's cold, they're cold-blooded creatures. No, they're not. They're going to eat. They are very efficient at what they do, and that's feeding. But there are some keys to remember. One, bait fish is a must. You've got to be around the buffet. If you want to catch a fish this time of year, you got to be around the buffet.
We like buffets. That's a good comment. We can remember that.
100%. I get it. But also remember, too, they retain their weight better this time of the year. The water's cold, so instead of burning off the poundage, the calories and everything, when they eat in the morning, they're going to retain that weight, and they don't have to feed as often. And fish are lazy for the most part. They're going to move as least amount of distance as they can to get the groceries. Now, I say all that to say this. Think about that. They want to be around food, and they want to be lazy. So that automatically takes you to your 45-degree banks, whether it's a 45-degree bank of riprap, because every riprap that you have bridge, if you picture that, there is that 45-degree bank slope to it. Your chunk rock banks, whether they're a third of the way to the back of the creek on the main lake, and chunk rocks are rocks this big and maybe bigger, and then the ones that neck down smaller in size. So if you concentrate on your 45-degree banks around rock and or riprap, you're going to have moments and windows in which fish feed, and it goes back, what are they going to feed on? They're going to feed on the shad, they're going to feed on the bluegill, and they're going to feed on the crayfish. They're going to feed to get that big they have to eat. And when you catch them this time of year, they look like they're about to explode. One, they are. They've been eating that much. And two, because it's so cold, they retain their weight. So what do you want to avoid then? You want to avoid topwater lures. You want to avoid flat banks. Why topwater lures? Fish has got to exert a lot of energy to get out there and catch that. Why do you want to avoid flat banks? There's no bait up there. For the most part, there is no food up there. Now, April, May, we're going to have a totally different conversation. But this time of the year, concentrate on 45-degree banks and concentrate on the hard cover, whether it's a rock, lay down, or some type of boat dock.
So you're looking at lures like lipless crankbaits, jigs maybe, crawl colors.
Yeah, and lipless crankbaits, not quite yet. Now, there's an exception to every rule. As soon as I say, I don't throw lipless, somebody's going to send in a comment, I caught 8-pounder the other day on a lipless. I like baits that have a bill to it, that are going to dive in that 3 to 8 foot range, that's going to be in constant contact, because fish this time of the year oftentimes are feeding looking down. There'll be other times of the year we get that May and June when they're feeding looking up. Right now they're feeding looking down because the crayfish is going to be rooting around on the bottom, right? So he's down there. That bluegill, that shad, especially on these colder days, they're going to be down there where the heat's at. Now, you get a sunny day, and as the sun progresses, the bait fish move up in the column, but so do more crayfish. They come out and get around the rocks. So I want a bait that's going to dive, a crankbait that's going to dive, that's got a lip on it, that can deflect. And then a jig, it's just going to be something that's going to hit the bottom. I love a finesse jig this time of the year. I remember having a friend over at Falls Lake, and he used to mount a lot of bass. It was a taxidermist. And he taught me one day, he said, 80% of every big fish he catches, that he ends up, when he empties the stomach contents, it's loaded with crayfish under 2 inches. Not to say an 8-pounder will not eat a monster crawdad. They will. But they will absolutely have tons and tons of Scooby snacks and eat a lot of crayfish. I catch a lot of fish on finesse jig this time of year, too.
So when we get a little further along into the February, March, when they start transitioning the secondary points in those areas, that's when we want to get a little higher in the water column when the bait fish
further
are
back
moving.
into on the flatter banks, follow the food. Because when we get into March, especially toward the end of April, what are the bluegill doing? They're pushing back further. And then your whole ecosystem becomes a little bit more alive. And also remember this time of the year, fish they don't mind cold water. That's the big misnomer. What they mind is severe, quick changes. What they mind is it's a 48-degree water, and all of a sudden we get a lot of rain, freezing rain and snow, and all that water blows back in there. It's 38 degrees. That's a 10-degree swing. To them, that is drastic. I would compare it to this. Walk into your house right now, and if the heat's set at 65, then an hour later walk in and it's at 55. You're going to notice that. You're going to feel that. A fish is a product of his environment. When that fish is stable, then he will act like he's stable and feed normal. When there's severe swings up or down, then he's going to go through that. He doesn't like that. That's why these 45-degree banks are so important. A fish can move up and down in the water column and not hundreds of yards horizontally, but instead vertically, and he can find a comfort zone.
That's awesome. Another thing I would like, you probably seen, Marty, where these couple of guys won this big crappie fishing tournament with just the John boat and basically cane poles. Talk a little bit about electronics and what that part that plays in fishing nowadays.
Electronics has probably changed our game more than the last 2 to 3 years. And any time period I've ever seen it been around the sport. You know, for a while, we all had the down imaging. Now we got down imaging. We got 2D sonar. We got side scan. We got forward-facing sonar. There's nowhere for these fish to hide. And for the guys that are really good at interpreting electronics, they're being rewarded. But I caution people all the time, don't think just because you put a great electronic unit on your boat, all of a sudden you're going to become a great fisherman. You still cannot replace intuition, instinct, a feel for what's on the water. I can take a fisherman, I can grab one of our guys off the Bass Pro Tour, strip his boats of all electronics, and I can let him compete against an average weekend angler that's got the best electronics in the world. And I promise you 95% of the time, my guy on the Bass Pro Tour is going to beat the brakes off of him. And people will go, that's not possible. Yeah, it is. Because their instincts, their intuition. They use the electronics as another piece of the information, but it's not the only piece. So the electronics today will draw you pictures that have never been seen, and they're the best I've ever seen them, and probably made the quickest amount of improvement in the last 2 to 4 years. But you cannot replace time on the water. You cannot replace the instincts of what the day's giving. Is it a bright day? Is it sunny day? Is it cloudy? Is it windy? Is it raining? Is the water clear? Is the water muddy? There's a lot of variables. More variables go into fishing than any other sport. Any other sport, there's a fixed animate object that we have to look at. Football, golf ball, basketball, so on and so forth. With fishing, it's a live living creature that reacts to its environment. Those electronics can help you. But if you're on bad water, your intuition puts you on bad water. You have all the electronics and the best lure in the world, you're still not going to catch one. So somewhere along the line, the experience and time on the water, along with the day's electronics, can end up with a situation like you're talking about with those gentlemen winning a tournament. And we see that all the time. Now, with my really, really good fishermen on the Bass Pro Tour Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit are dialed into an area, understand what the fish are doing, and got electronics, and everything is working together in a perfect synergy, that's when train wrecks happen. That's when they catch the ever-loving fire out of.
I heard you say a couple of things there, Marty, that I'm looking for a quote to really just take back to my wife. You said a couple of things. Well, you said it a couple of times. You need time on the water.
Amen.
Yes.
You need time on the water. So when I go back, you've met my wife, and I begin to share with her what I learned from Marty. What I've taken away so far as that golden nugget is I really need some time on the water.
Yeah, but I'm going to also be on her side a little bit too. Is that time on the water in your situation, how does it affect the W-2 at the end of the year? See, my guys that are on the water all the time, they've got a 1099 and a W-2 at the end of the year that justifies that time on the water. We recreational fishermen like you and I and others, it's more of a balance. It's a piece. And so if you go back to Cynthia and you say, Marty says I have to have a lot of time on the water, I'm going to go on record right now and go, yes, you do. But where does it affect the W-2 and the 1099, and where's the balance at?
Hey, that's great. That's great wisdom, and I'm going to take that back home as well to Lynette and share that. Hey, you talked about the guys that are on tour right now. And I enjoy watching Major League Fishing on Saturdays, and I was telling you earlier, I'm watching last year's actually heavy hitters that came here to North Carolina, and watching those guys just wear them out. But something I was watching the other day was pretty interesting is how the fish react, and it seems like, Marty, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like at certain points during a day, if they've got a 7 or 8 hour window or a 6 hour window, the fish will be on, and then it seems like they shut off, and they shut off for everybody. And then suddenly everybody starts catching them again. But it may be in different situations, where they're at, where they're located, if they're near the dam or if they're on a point. But it seems like certain times of the day, the fish are on, and certain times they're not. Is that true, or do you see that? Or am I just totally crazy?
An anomaly that I realized in 2011 and 2012 when we were first doing the cups, because I'm on the water and I've got a score tracker in my hand. So when I was on the water with the guys, I saw where everybody was at, and I saw within a 45-second real time of when they caught their fish. And about the second event, and I give all the credit to one of my camera operators, he's like, this is lunar tables, because the whole field at that point in time was catching. And I remember my career saying one time, man, I fish on Earth, not on the moon. And I ignored that for the most part. Now I'm an avid deer hunter, and I will not deer hunt except during peak major time periods. But I refuse to fish that way. But as I've covered Major League Fishing, because I get to watch the best in the business, and I watch them as an entirety, as a group, as a whole. So I'm not watching just one fisherman, but you're correct. Time and time again, you'll see the whole field lighten up the score tracker, and then all of a sudden it shuts down. And then there's only a few. Our guys are so good, they're still going to catch a few. And then all of a sudden there's another window where it opens up. And I have come to realize, and I've got my guys, Chad McKee, JT Kinney, and everybody in the production truck, they're buying into what I'm selling, because we talk about the moon phases now. There is absolutely a correlation between it. Now, here's the keys to remember. If you're in bad water and you got a great moon, you're still not going to catch them. You're in bad water. But what it should tell you is when I'm when I'm fishing, I wish I'd give anything if I'd known this 30 years ago when I was competing. When I'm fishing out for fun or whether I'm fishing a little one-day event, and I know there's a major feed going on and I'm not getting bit, I'm changing water. I'm moving areas. There's somewhere on that lake that they're biting because it's a major feed. Same thing with the minor feeds. So when I'm practicing and I'm going through an area and it's not a major or minor and I get a couple bites and I don't catch them or I miss them, lose them, whatever, it tells me, hey, when you got a major and minor, circle back through there. Make you a little hot lap. And then when you get a few bites on a major feed, realize you just now found the right area, then capitalize on that. And that's how our guys end up catching some really big bags. There's a direct correlation, and I'll leave you with this thought too. The one thing, though, I have learned over the years as I'm trying to look into this more than more, there's two things that will always trump a lunar solar tables. One is weather. Extreme weathers, that's going to trump whatever's going on. A fish is a product of his environment, right? And then the spawn. When that cycle goes through, you can throw that because that fish is not necessarily feeding per se. Now you're talking about a fish that's more in a defense mechanism situation. So weather and the spawn affect that. But any other time, I pay absolute attention to those lunar tables.
That's awesome. That's a good word. Let's talk a little bit about the dark side here for a minute. You know, I know in kayak fishing, you know, we do things a little different. We measure the fish instead of doing the weight. And we've got some rule modifications that have come out because of, you know, people, you know, cheating, I guess is the blunt way to say that. How do you guys do things, and what are some of just the process, you know, of that you guys go through? Are there judges on every boat, or how are things working now?
Yeah, I want to concentrate just on the Bass Pro Tour for a second on that. And Barry, you told me earlier that you and your wife were watching some of this. When we created this product, the Bass Pro Tour, we all as a group had some visions. One, how can we do something that's going to attract the avid sports fan? Whether we put on good fishing or bad fishing, we knew we were going to get the same 500,000 views because they've been watching it for 40 years. Our hope was to take a sport that's traditionally very slow in TV. Watching bass fishing on TV can be like watching grass grow. Let's just be honest, or paint dry. So then we had to speed up the process, and we did that by a few rules modifications. First and foremost, on the Bass Pro Tour, we have an official on every boat. That official is trained, he's vetted, he goes through a whole regimen of training through our internal tournament directors and everything. So when he gets on that boat, he's with that angler all day long. His job is to score bass. So it depends on where we're at. We're anywhere between 1.5 pounds to 2 pound minimum. We're very similar to golf. If we go to a really good lake, it's going to be a 2 pound minimum because we know we're going to catch a lot of fish and big fish. If we go to a tougher lake, we'll push that back to 1.5 pounds. Every fish counts. Everything in sports that happens, everything counts in sports. You can score as many runs as you want to in baseball, as many baskets as you want to in basketball. In fishing, every fish counts. And then we have some rules. Some of the rules are fish are not supposed to touch the carpet. If it touches the carpet, that's a fish landing violation. That angler has to sit in the bottom of the boat for 2 minutes. Ooh. If you release that fish higher than the gunnel, throw him casually back. That's a 2-minute penalty. So fish care is the utmost, but we catch, weigh, and release. That score is entered into the score tracker, and our fisherman, for the first time ever in the sport of bass fishing, knows where they stand real time within 45 seconds. Ooh. So now we're creating the drama because at the end of a lot of our rounds, we have cuts. We'll have 40 anglers on the water and only the top 20 advance. So we have that cut line pressure. You know, at the end of the day, when us three are fishing against each other and we're in the championship round, I know exactly what you two have got. And I know what I've got to do to be able to overtake that. So our fans know the real-time scoring. Our fishermen know the real-time scoring. And it has created some drama that we always hoped for, but we had never seen before.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I said. You know, sometimes I talk my wife into watching some, and she watches for those elements you just mentioned. When the clock's ticking, and she's like, what if he catches a fish? There's 20 seconds left, the clock's ticking. he's got to get in the boat. He can't mess around. And the guys that are trying to make the cut, they know right where they stand. They're like, I've got to catch one more, because they're being told, hey, you're 1 pound 6 ounces out of 10th, or you're this close, or you're this close to that, or here's the big fish for now. Maybe we're looking for that. And so all those elements add some drama that draws in, I think, the average guy or the average lady that's watching, versus just watching some guys that show up at the weigh-in and, at the boat ramp to see who won. So there's a little bit there's a lot of drama throughout the day, and seeing you guys interact with that's cool.
The more chaos around that cut line, the better the shows are. And it's real world situation. These guys are fishing to make a house payment. 20th place, we've got a group of 40. 20th place is 10 grand. 21st place is 3,700. That's a big difference in the payday. I'm not a math major, but I know enough about finances. That's a big difference. So the pressure's real. When I tell people all the time, I have a lot of young anglers come up to me, man, I want to fish for a living. I look at them and go, have you ever fished broke? Because if you never fish with your house payment on the line, then you're not ready to handle the pressure of what our guys go through.
Cool. Man, I love the personalities too. You've got some great personalities on the tour right now. Some guys are just they're just steady all day. And you got some guys that are high energy, and some guys are just knocking it out, working it through it. But just seeing some of the younger guys that are coming on now. Who are some guys right now that you think are the up and coming? We know the Iconellis and Vandams and those guys. But who are some guys that are kind of new on the scene that there's some guys to watch for?
Yeah, for the fan that really haven't kept up with it, and we hope to attract to. And I'll use the up and coming, because a lot of them have up and coming here. They're here. The Jacob Wheeler, the Dustin Connell, the Mark Daniels Jr., the Michael Neals of the world. These are the guys that are my sub 30-year-old anglers that are just absolutely killing it. Adrian Avina, a kid out of New Jersey. We got a lot of them. Jordan Lee, that kid is just rock solid. Jacob Wheeler there's very few people. There are very few people has the potential to be the next Kevin Vandam. And I'm very, very hesitant to put that label on anybody because of the pressure that it instills. Kevin has always been our Tiger Woods of fishing. He's that good. I mean, Kevin's right now approaching $8 million in career earnings. Next closest guy is at $4.4 million. So it's going to take a while. I've always said our next Kevin Vandam's probably fishing a high school or college event because of the longevity that angler's going to have to be able to get where Kevin's at. And, Kevin just won an event this year, so it's not like he's going to hang it up anytime soon, and he can still fish at a really high level. We have got a lot of good young anglers. We really do. And the beauty that I love about what we do is we've got so many cameras in the water, we're pretty good at transferring as the story unfolds. We're able to show the personalities. And we're on live. We're at MajorLeagueFishing.com. MajorLeagueFishing.com. We'll crank up this Thursday, Thursday, 7 a.m. We'll be on 9 hours live. So it's a streaming video. This year, I was just talking to my producer this morning before I come on with you guys. So we got 16 full events that we're going to cover. We're going to have over 659 hours of live streaming coverage. I'll put that in perspective. Every week we do a Bass Pro Tour. That's doing a full college football season for one team. So when we do 1 week of live, it's 6 days in a row, 9 hours a day. That would be the same thing as if we were covering the Wolfpack from start of the season to the end of the season, all the way through the bowl games as well. We do that in 1 week.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Now, I was going to ask you related to that. You think it would be helpful to you guys if I sort of took a camera with me and just sort of got some footage of, while I'm out on the water? Think that'd be helpful?
Absolutely.
I've got some footage.
What I can do, because all my buddies are like, man, you got to get me on camera. And some of them, I be careful what you ask for. I know my camera operators. I know my producers. I can make a lot of things happen. But as I tell all my buddies back home going, man, I wish I could. I'm like, okay. And I have put the camera in front of them. And when it's a real camera with a real operator and a real producer, and then you've got someone in your ear counting you down for you to finish your thought as we go to commercial break, it's a whole different dichotomy. It really
I bet.
is.
I
So,
bet so.
yeah, we can do it if you really, really want to do that. We'll show the world your ability. Right now, you can tell the world how good you're going to be or are. If I put that camera in the boat, we're going to remove all doubt.
Yeah.
I think we should do it. That's what I'm feeling like. Feeling led. Yeah.
Well, Marty, this has been great. We could talk all day, and I know you probably got other things, but I just wanted to share, you and I met just through, I shared in our first video, we met through worship. I became the interim pastor at Temple Baptist down in Fayetteville, and then I bumped into this guy named Marty Stone. I was actually introduced to you, and you and I just sort of hit it off really, really well. So just share a little bit with us, if you would, about your your faith, what part your faith has played in your life and your family, and just share anything along those lines you'd like to share with us.
Sandy, it's my whole foundation. If anybody's known me, it's not been a perfect walk, but it's been God-led. I am very blessed. Again, as I said earlier, I've got to do things. I've got to meet people. I've got to see things, go places that I never dreamed of going. I've got to be in situations that I know that were God-led and God-blessed. And for whatever reason, he's chosen to give me this career path, this platform. And as I live out my life, I try time and time again to live by an example. And this is what can happen when you turn it over to God. And I look back on my career as a fisherman, and there were many moments in my career where I didn't do that. It was about me. I was at the pinnacle a couple of times in sport, and pride took over and humility wasn't there, and God humbled me. He stepped me back a few steps and said, big boy, none of this is possible without me. And that's okay. That's part of the learning experience. That's part of the life experience. Now I live by a couple mottos: daily dependence. My most important time of my day, every day, whether I'm at home doing research for Major League Fishing, whether I'm out on the road getting ready to do live, my most important non-negotiable time of my day is first thing in the morning when I'm able to open up the Word, go to the Lord, and then before that day's over with, before that morning's over with, on my knees in prayer. Because I've always said, you want to show me a godly man, then show me the one that knees on his pants are worn out. I know that. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt now. He's protecting me. He's protecting my family. He's blessed me with a wonderful family. And the foundation is there. There's no way my marriage of 30 years survives without having a godly wife and me turning it over to him. There's no way that we get through all the ups and downs and raising kids without God. There's no way I'm where I'm at right now in the fishing industry without God. And I think he's still got a lot more chapters for me to accomplish and to do on his behalf. So my hope is every day when I get up and I put my first step on the floor, because that's all he asks us to do is just take one step, and he'll be there with you, and then take the second step. So every day when I take that first step, it's a step that's going to be directed toward him. And if I can do that, then I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to be a better man. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm going to be a better father. I'm going to be a better Christian. I'm going to be a better servant. And again, I am not a perfect person, because if anybody that watches this that knows me, they go, I remember about, yes, they can. And I will be the first to admit it. I have made a lot of mistakes, but luckily for me, I worship and love a God that's forgiving. And all he wants is a relationship with me. And that's pretty doggone phenomenal. It really is. And my old website that I used to have when it was martystone.com, it was faith, family, and fishing. And then the tagline was, and the only reason I can't put hunting in there is because it doesn't start with an F. That's how I tried to live my life: faith, family, and friends. And then I threw the fishing in there too. And then the next step would have been the hunting if we could have. But if you keep the faith in perspective, and there's going to be tough times, there's going to be great times, there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, but to know that you've got a God that loves you and a God that will always be there by your side. Because the times in my life when I went through the roughest moments, more times than not, those were the times I veered off his path. All he asks is for daily dependence and take the next step. And if in my life, if I'll do those two things, normally everything works out. Not that it's perfect, not that it's easy. It's not going to be easy. Shouldn't be easy. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth having. But man, the highs that you experience when you're under God's grace are just incredible. And then when you hit those low moments in life, you're looking for, who can I reach to? Who's the one hand? I don't care who you are in life. Your family will let you down. Your friends at some point now. I've let people down. I've let friends down. I've let my family down. I've let other people are going to let you down. But there's one hand that I can always turn to that will never let me down, and that will be his hand.
Man, I just love what you said, Marty. It's a journey. You know, none of us are perfect, and probably many are looking at Sadie and I that have known us since high school days of playing baseball together and all this. Like, man, what are they doing? You know, but man, we serve a God that's forgiving, loving, merciful, patient, and all those things. So I think one thing we're excited about Real Life Guys, this YouTube channel, is that we can have fun and we can talk about our families and fishing and intertwine our faith, because that is the foundation of all that we do. And so I'm thankful for your testimony, brothers. It's good to hear from you today, and we hope we can talk some more in the days to come.
I'm a phone call away, boys. That's all. I mean, I'm a phone call or text away.
I got to share just a little story, just you know, to tell Marty's character. You know, I shared with you I was interim pastor at Temple Baptist, which my wife and I are still mourning that we don't get to gather and worship with you
and
guys.
So are we, but that's another conversation.
But I shared from the pulpit. You know, I like to include a lot of personal journey and stuff from, you know, in my sermons and things. And I shared from the pulpit one Sunday. You remember when I didn't secure my rod and reel correctly? Yeah. And we made the journey home, and I got home and found out that I was one rod and reel short. Yeah. And I also shared that I lost my favorite fishing shirt. Marty heard that, and then the next week he came back and he had a fishing rod and a fishing shirt for me. He told me to meet him in the parking lot. So that's sort of the character of Marty, and man, I really appreciate that. That's my favorite fishing rod. Think about you when I use it.
Well, I still owe you a trip. I'm gonna never sway you from the kayak side. That's a lot of fun, and man, that segment is growing. I fished off the bank. I fished out aluminum boats. I fished out of every little boat imaginable. Now I'm very blessed. I get to fish out of some bigger boats. So you and I still owe you a trip or two or three or four or whatever. We're going to get in a big boat one day, and we're going to have a good time with that. But fishing in the outdoors, to me, they go hand in hand with God's grace. Because I don't care who you are. If you see the sun go down and you see it rise, and you think there's not something bigger than you are, then you're missing something. When we're out in nature, at least for myself, I don't have a time where I'm more connected. Some of my fondest memories in our boat involve getting there before the sun rises, launching the boat, go to a quiet cove, getting out my Bible, power poling down, watching the sun come up, being God's word, and enjoying nature. The fishing and the catching and the losing and the camaraderie and the winning and everything, that's great. But slowing down long enough to see his creation and then be able to share it with others and have the common bond of outdoors, it truly, to me, puts a lot of things in perspective.
That's a good word, brother.
Man, it's been great having you on today. And I think we need to be on the boat. I think I'm going to come with you guys. I'm bringing the camera. And I'll have my own score tracker and timer, and we'll set you guys up. And then we'll come back and on another episode and share with what the results were. I think that'd be worth doing.
I'm going to tell you what, Marty, if you spend a day with me on the water, you have some material when you go back on TV. You have some material, I guarantee you.
And you'll have some snacks. We always have, that's important.
I'm a big believer. I used to say back in my day when I compete, I'd stop midway through the day, and I'd sit there and eat my PB&J, and my co-anglers observer look at me kind of funny. I'm like, son, this is not an event to see who can starve themselves together. If you've ever met me, you understand I have not missed many meals. Not going to. I'm all about the snacks.
Hey, Marty Stone, color analyst for Major League Fishing, getting ready to crank it back up at Sam Rayburn, I think, this coming week. And man, MLF.com, you go check it out and keep up with what's going on. And we appreciate you being here today. Like we said, look forward to talking with you again.
Guys, it's been I was the first. There can only be
first.
one.
Nobody can ever take that from you.
Yeah. I'm going to have to put that in my tagline somewhere or in my career highlights.
There you go. There you go. That's it. Well, brother, I love you. Appreciate you. And we hope to see you soon.
So,
guys, thank y'all. Thank you for what you do in your word, your ministry, and everything. I'll continue to pray for it. Hope nothing but success. If you ever need me, I'm a phone call or text away.
Awesome. Hey, thank you guys for watching. And whether it's faith, family, or fishing, you can always remember Sandy and I are here and we're your hookup, right?
That's right. We're keeping it real.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.